Hello and welcome to Millionaire Brand Creation. Just wanted to thank you guys for joining us this morning. I know a lot of you were looking forward to hearing AJ's story and what's going on in the storage industry. He's one of the titans of that industry, and he will be on today at 4 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on my Instagram. We're going to do a collaboration on Instagram Live. But today I even have a more impressive special guest, someone that's even more important in my life. This is Gyda Laveres. Gyda Laveres is my girlfriend. And we're going to talk about relationships, power couple dynamics, how to attract a great partner into your life, and also how do you create a great career-minded continuity in your relationship, even if you are in different industries. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce you to Gyda. How are you, sweetheart?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So I think a lot of people see you on my Instagram or Facebook or on, all these different mediums, and they know you're spectacular and beautiful and smart and all those things. But I don't think a lot of people know your story. So can you go back and tell us about your upbringing, honey, and about what got you that millionaire brand creation mindset? What made you who you are today?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm sure everybody knows I'm originally from the Philippines. I didn't move to the US until I was almost 19 years old. And when I first came here, I barely spoke the language, didn't know anybody. I had, my aunt and uncle that basically took care of us, my mom, my dad, and I for a little bit. And yeah, it took me a little bit to really, learn the language, understand the culture. I ended up going to school to really, get to know a lot of people and then I got into my industry after that. And, I've been in my industry for over 11 years now. So,
Take us back to the Philippines because I don't think a lot of people are familiar with that culture. Maybe some on the call are, but obviously you were an outlier over there, right? You were in, the space of Miss Universe. You were Miss Manila. You did a lot of pageants, things like that. What was the trajectory that you had in your mind before you moved to the United States?
I definitely didn't think that I never wanted to move here, first of all. I remember fighting with my parents, and I told you about this. Like, I was crying every night. I was fighting with my parents, not wanting to come here because I thought that I had a set trajectory. And it's funny. It's kind of, I don't really want to talk. It's kind of vain to say it, but I kind of want to be a celebrity back there. I'm like, I'm going to be a celebrity. I'm going to do pageants. I'm going to do this. And, I don't really want to go to the States because I feel like everything was going my way back then as far as where I wanted my life to go to. And again, it's a totally different mindset over there because it's a third world country. So, as female, you are expected to take care of the family. Men basically are breadwinners, and you're just basically expected to have babies at 20s and you're on your 20s and just take care of your whole family. So that's what I thought what's going to happen in my life. I thought I was going to get married at 21, just like my mom, and have four kids, just like my mom. And that's not what happened. So,
So when you moved here, obviously you moved to Tucson. Your aunt brought you and your family over. And tell us that transition, because I know a lot of people in business come from nothing, but really you can't come from much less than a person coming from a third world country, especially to a place like Tucson, where there's not that much opportunity that you have here in Arizona. What gave you the continuity and the grit to create a career and create a life for yourself?
right. I've always been very independent growing up. I've always have goals that I want to pursue, and I remember not having a choice. You almost kind of go in that survival mode of, I really want to make this work, and I know that my parents wouldn't make decisions for me or wouldn't put me in a situation that's not going to be good for me in the future because they've always have made good choices for me. So yeah, so basically having that survival kind of mindset of like, I really want to make this work. I'm going to learn the language. I'm going to understand the culture. I'm going to go to school. I'm going to meet friends and just kind of keep going. And that's what I did.
Now, I know a lot of people listening in, I know a lot of people are interested in the relationship dynamic of creating a power couple. Obviously, you were physically alluring at a young age, as you are today. But how did you create kind of a understanding of what type of guy you wanted to attract into your life? And how did you create the mindset to say, I don't really want to be taken care of by a man per se. I want to create my own career so I can take care of myself, which is a rare trait for a lot of people.
Right. That mindset kind of took a while, to establish. It took a lot of mistakes on my part and a lot of bad decisions on my part. In the beginning, I really didn't know what I want. I was just basically kind of trailing along with trying to figure out what I wanted to do in the future. And I ended up getting married at that time. And, it was, I've learned a lot about myself from being married, and I learned a lot about what I don't like in a relationship. And I remember my brother, I think, when I was going through divorce, my brother told me that, Gyda, you have to show people how you want to be treated. And I think I've really focused on that and followed through with that. And I know after being married for 14 years, I told myself that I wasn't going to settle, that, the next relationship that I, you know, get myself into, that it's going to be better than ever. Hence you,
And
babe.
what? Oh, thank you, sweetheart. What are qualities? Let's say people listening in, a lot of these, as you know, are entrepreneurs or they're in the real estate space. Some are married and some are single. And one of the biggest questions I get asked all the time is twofold. One, if you're single, where do you go and how do you meet successful, attractive people like yourself? Number one. And number two, if you're married, how do you stay married and stay happy in that relationship? What are some of the things that you've learned that you can share with the audience?
Yeah, well, to answer your first question, I think as a single person, for me, I really didn't focus on trying to find the next person that's going to be in my life. Instead, I focus on myself, like bettering myself.
Mm-hmm.
I focus on, really like focus on my career, growing as a person, working on all of the insecurities that my ex relationship brought in, and making sure I didn't, basically I didn't bring that into my new relationship. So I really focus on
Mm.
my growth. I focus on health, fitness, and all that. And for some reason, I mean, you came into my life, obviously. So I think like the biggest advice is, instead of obsessing over how to get your next partner, I would suggest just focus on yourself, because the right partner will come along in your life when you're a whole person again, basically.
And then how do you suggest people actually go out and, create a following, create a business and get into a high paying business? Because I mean, what's fascinating to me knowing your story is coming in at 18, 19, and then in less than 10 years later, not only going into the health industry, but going into one of the most difficult, most male dominated and highest paying areas of the health industry. How do you navigate that type of business? Especially, I know a lot of real estate agents and maybe female real estate agents are listening in. Well, how do you navigate that to get to the destination that you desire?
Right. I think like the biggest thing I've learned, because in the beginning I was using the female excuse of like, it's a male dominated career, it's harder as a female, but there's pros and cons in both, genders basically. So I just stopped kind of comparing and using that as an excuse, and basically looking at the other reps that, that are male. They're just like me. So instead I focus on growing, I focus on learning. And because I wanted to, instead of me obsessing over my competitors, my goal was to, how do I partner with them, so we can help each
Mm.
other to grow our business together.
Hmm. Yes. And then how did you have the foresight to understand this was the industry that you wanted to go into? And this was a high paying industry that, even though ultra competitive, was the right path for you to take?
Right. I mean, my story when I first started the medical device sales, I started as a tray runner. And for those who doesn't know what that is, it's basically, you're basically setting up trays, driving around. I mean, each tray that we carry is about 50 pounds. I have like 10 trays in my cart, dropping it off to different hospitals, just trying to prove yourself that you can do the job. I mean, the distributorship that I worked for in the beginning, they were very short staffed and they were covering both Tucson and Phoenix. So sometimes I'll get a call at midnight to drive all the way to Phoenix to set up trays, which I did. And I think that was my way of proving myself, knowing that this was really hard to get into. Because if you ask, I would say 90% of medical device reps how they got in, the first thing they would tell you is somebody, I know somebody in the company that got me in, or I have a friend in the company that got me in. So I knew that I had to really prove myself, because this is one of those things, or one of the hardest industry even to now to get into. So that's what I did, and I basically stuck in it, and I knew it was going to be good for me in the future, and I knew that's going to make me grow, and I love healthcare. And I even told my mom, because obviously a lot of Filipinos are nurses, so I told my mom this is the closest to a nurse I'm gonna get. So yeah.
I love that. And then, as far as marketing, because I know a lot of people watching this are interested in branding and personal branding. How did you learn about dressing well? Because obviously, attire traits are totally different in the Philippines and in third world countries as they are here. And then, secondly, how did you start branding yourself online? Because I know your specialty now over the last 5 or 6 months is LinkedIn. I know you have a huge, robust presence on there. And then obviously on Instagram, you have a lot of followership there as well. What are some of the key pieces of advice that you can relay to the audience to maybe help them not only dress better, but more importantly, market themselves more effectively?
Right. Well, one thing I learned about social media is being authentic. And I think a lot of people can see through, people that are not authentic. And I think that's the biggest thing I've done in my social media, is making sure that whatever I put in there is the truth and nothing but the truth. And also, showing people my work ethic, showing people my personality, showing people how it is to partner with me. And a lot of, when it comes to attire, I mean, I would say a lot of that is research and just really paying attention to what's around you and understanding what works and what doesn't work. But yeah, but as far as marketing, I'm starting to learn about, because of COVID, I'm starting to learn a little bit more about digital marketing. And I took a course for that because I feel like, I think my mentor told me that, you're responsible for your own education. So you can't blame your boss for not training
Mm.
you if you never put an effort into it. So I've always really, made sure that even though somebody's training me or telling me what to do, I'm constantly educating with myself with the new technology, how to market, because it always changes.
How has LinkedIn really helped you with your career? And what are some of the things that, because I know you spent a lot of money with a LinkedIn coach specifically, and that's one thing that you've mastered well that I think a lot of other entrepreneurs and real estate agents could benefit from. What are a few key ingredients that you took from that course that you implemented in your own LinkedIn presence?
Right. Well, because my industry is a little different as far as how we sell, because we basically, typically the way it works is we cold sell, right? So we go in doctors' offices, we talk to the assistant, then we talk to the manager, then we set up a lunch, and then hopefully we get to the surgeon. Well, I find that doesn't work for me anymore, because there's just so many steps leading up to the surgeon. So I figured that I will, get rid of the gatekeepers and go directly to the surgeon. The only way I can do that is through LinkedIn. And I found that there's a lot of surgeons are actually in on LinkedIn, and a lot of other reps are not, utilizing that platform. So that's what I did. I basically, the way for me to minimize, the number of steps that I have to take to get to the key, I just, I started kind of like using ways like, digital marketing, social media, and it's impressive the number of results that I've been getting because of it. And I'm not per se, when I reach out to them on LinkedIn, I'm not being very aggressive about it as far as like, hey, can I get a meeting? Because people want to be treated like people, so you can't treat them like just another object that you're trying to acquire. You have to show them that you really want to be a partner with them, and or that you have value, you have some kind of value to offer them in order for them to get interested in partnering with you. So I just focus on basically showing them how I am. If they were to partner with me, I showing them the person I am, showing them my work ethic, and showing them the value that I can add to their practice.
And I think that part parlays well into, people in the real estate space, because they're obviously looking for decision makers and, homeowners and or sellers, right? That's what they're looking for most. So I think that has a lot to do with it. So I think as far as LinkedIn, what are like some, like, give us one or two things that you do consistently that you see not a lot of people doing? Because I know you went viral on a couple of your posts. What are some things that people can do in different industries that may garner the same results?
Yes, well, I understand how LinkedIn algorithm works. Algorithm works just like the Facebook algorithm. So it's all about posting consistently and knowing to use the right
Mm,
hashtags. So you have to, learn how to do hashtag research. That way you can show up on in pages that you want to show up to. So for example, in my industry, I would use neurosurgery, spine surgery, and I will show up in all those pages where the surgeons will use hashtags so they can see my face and those. So consistency, I think the biggest thing that a coach told me is that, when people see your face on a social media platform consistently, they think of you almost like a celebrity. They can't distinguish the
mm,
difference between an actual celebrity and a social media celebrity. So if they keep seeing your face over and over, and this happened to me a few times to where I'm walking in the hospital and somebody started talking about my content and how much they love it, and they saw my face on LinkedIn. So that to me is pretty impressive.
hmm So consistency is important, and making sure that you are on a physical medium on as many different platforms as often as possible in a professional, well dressed, manner, I would assume, correct?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. And obviously, you also have to comment or make sure that you are commenting on the people's posts that you're trying to, sell to. So for me, I make sure that I comment
Mm,
on spine surgeons' posts. I would ask questions to show that you actually are paying attention and that you're actually interested on what they have to put out there. Because for me, the biggest thing
hmm
is like reciprocity, right? So if you do something nice to
Yep.
them, it could be as easy as making a comment on their post. They would, do something nice back to you.
hmm Okay, I like this. This is great. So I'm curious though, because I think people that are going to rewatch this are most curious about relationship dynamics, right? So obviously, your ex-husband in your situation, you were both professionals, right? You were both high earning professionals that worked all the time. What are some key ingredients that you've learned that either worked or didn't work when you have two type A professional personalities that you could possibly relay or help the audience with?
Yes, I mean, the biggest thing I learned being married for so long was to know when to separate work from personal. I think I remember going out on date nights with my ex husband. All we talked about is work, 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 and that's so unhealthy. So you have to be able
Mm,
to learn how to separate the two and really connect in a personal level. Because it's so easy to go out for a drink per se and just whine about work and the things that happen at work versus talking about each other and your your plans for each other in the future. So I think that's the biggest advice I would say. And of course, like communication, making sure you spend time with each other. And I'm not saying like watch a movie, watch TV. I'm saying just communicate and talk. And I think you and I are really, really good at that,
Mhm.
as far as like turning off the TV while we're having dinner and just making sure we're communicating consistently.
Yeah, I think, it's funny. I had this conversation a lot, and I think it's important, whether those viewers watching are married or single, is you must write down specifically what it is that you require out of a relationship, right? Because your requirements are different than your desires, right? What you require versus what you desire. And obviously, you want those to interlap, you want those to be a part of the relationship, but I think your requirements are kind of non negotiables. You know what I mean? And so for everyone, that's probably a little different. And how important is that? And how do you communicate that effectively to your spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend? What have you learned in that situation?
Right. I think like for me, just talking about triggers, right? For me, because of what happened to me
Hmm.
in the past, a lot of triggers that would cause me to react a certain way, even though that's not what I really wanted, or that's not what I'm actually feeling, or has nothing to do with the person. So yeah, so being able to communicate that, and it took me a long time to learn that, because I've always been kind of the quiet one and just kind of agreeing to everything. Now I've really learned how to set expectations and talk about what triggers me, talk about what makes me happy, things that basically just be you and tell the person, hey, these are the things that I like, these are the things that I don't like. Now, where can I meet you in the middle, or how can we meet in the middle? So yeah, so understanding and learning how to compromise and all that, but it also begins with really putting everything out there and being able to be open and honest about everything that you want.
So here's a question, and here's a question I get all the time, and I want to hear your parameter on there. Obviously, you're very physically attractive, but you're also a high earner. You have a lot of value added dynamics in a relationship. But if you instantly single again tomorrow for some odd reason, how would you go about uh, attracting and meeting high quality people if you were a single guy or girl? Because that's a question I get asked all the time, and I'm really curious to hear that from like a female perspective.
Right. I mean, first of all, you want to go to places where successful and attractive women will go to. I mean, and you want to present yourself in a way that you're ready to settle, or you're ready to be in a relationship, because people can read through that. It's about what you post, do they see you going out every night, or do they see you, really focusing on fitness and all that. So you want to become who you want to attract. So if you like someone who's fit, you have to be fit. If you like someone
Hmm.
who dress nice, you have to dress nice. So I mean, I feel like it's a simple formula, but it is hard, because it really took me a while to learn about that too. Because in the beginning, after my past relationship, I would post things that are probably looks as if I'm a partier, which I'm totally not. So yeah, so you want to make sure that you're posting things that shows the other individual that you're ready for a relationship.
Mm, that's interesting. Yeah, and how here's a conversation I had last night that I think you could relate to. I had a friend of mine asking me, "Okay, I'm single. I really want to meet someone like Gyda. What's the best way to do it?" And I said, in all honesty, I think the easiest way to meet someone of quality is to not focus on the external people around you, but more importantly, solely focus on yourself. Focus on your health, focus on your mindset, focus on your income, focus on your career, focus on being nice to your friends and interactive. And in some weird magnetic way, I think that's an attractor for the opposite sex. Do you agree with that, or how would that differ for you?
Absolutely. I mean, that makes total sense. You always want to focus on what you can control, right? You can't control who you attract, but you can control, you know, you can control yourself and what you want to attract by being that person that you want to attract. So I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, because I think in dating, obviously, I wrote a book on it, and you've dated, I've dated, we've all dated, and we've learned a lot about what it takes to be successful at dating and what it is that we don't want. But do you think it's important, and I'm curious to hear your response to this, that if someone hasn't dated a lot, it's very difficult to know what it is that you want versus what it is that you don't want. Do you recommend people date a lot to learn more about themselves? Or do you recommend that they don't really date at all and they just wait until the magical person appears in their life?
Right. Well, it's just like sales, right? It's a numbers game. So absolutely, date as much as you can, and in order for you to figure out what you really want in your life. And it's so easy to figure that out too. I mean, I remember I would probably, a couple of dates tops, you'll know if that person is the right person for you. So yeah, so definitely date a lot, but don't spend too much time on someone that's not giving you what you want. So don't waste your time on dating someone that's,
Mm,
essentially not going to give you what you want in the future, basically.
yeah. Yeah. And God, this to me is so interesting because these are the questions I get all the time. So I think it's fascinating to hear from like a female perspective. But if you're married, right, what are some ways to keep a marriage intact and alive and exciting and making sure you're on the same page as far as, your emotional communication and your business communication? What are some ways that you've learned to do that? Maybe through failure or successes in your own life?
Right. I think again, making sure that you spend some time together, alone time together, whether it's date nights,
Mm.
and make sure that when you do have those alone times, that you're making it quality, meaning that you're having meaningful conversations about each other, and about each other's, whether it's issues or expectations. Or I'm not saying like you don't use that date night trying to nag the other person. Make sure you use it to where, hey, this is what I expect for us in the future. Are we on the same page? Especially for those who have kids. I mean, I've never had kids, so I can only imagine how hard it is for those to actually have that alone time. But I think making an effort to do so. And for me, what worked for me is making sure you dressed up nicely when you go out. Put an effort into it, to look
Mm.
nice for each other.
Hmm.
You don't want to lose that spark. You don't want to lose that attraction. And I think that's what really essentially will make a marriage go, longer, if you have that constant attraction between each other by putting an effort. Because it's so easy to just wear a sweatshirt, not put any makeup on, not do your hair as a female because you're so comfortable. But for me, it was very important that I never get too comfortable. That I wanted to make sure that I always took care of myself, that I always dress nice when we go out. Doesn't matter if you're in a relationship for 10, 15 years. I think it's important to really put into that.
If you were to relay information to your friends, right? Guys or girls, we both have a lot of friends of opposite sexes, etc. And I'm sure a lot of girls ask you that are your friends, Gyda, how do you meet a successful guy? How do you attract a successful guy, right? I get guys asking me, how do you meet an attractive, successful girl? What are some key pieces of advice that you would relay to them that they could implement in their life, like right now, in order to do so?
Put yourself out there, network. Again, like I always go back to sales, right? How do
Hmm.
you meet those, they're your clients? You network, you go out there and you go to places where they will be there. So do your research, go to places when go to places where those people are going to go to, are the ones that you wanted to attract. And I'm sure you have an idea, everybody does. So go to networking events, go to dinner parties, even like reach out to your friends that maybe has single friends. You never know if they have someone that's probably don't like online dating and just wants to meet someone in person. Maybe that could work. So I've had friends that actually met someone through another friend. So yeah, but it goes back to like put yourself out there and make sure that you're meeting people and you're putting in the work. You can't like sit in your room and eat popcorn and watch Netflix all day and expect to meet someone. It just doesn't work that way.
It's almost a secondary job. And I think it's important that you almost treat it as if it were no different than procuring that surgeon or no different than procuring that $10 million buyer if you're a real estate agent or what have you. You got to put the same number of hours of effort into it. And I think a lot of people just choose not to because they're not getting the results. But here's another question. I get a lot of people that ask me, oh, I like to meet people the old fashioned way. And you and I did, surprisingly enough, which is, I think, extremely rare these days. But a lot of people are against online dating. And to me, I'm curious to hear your response because I believe, like you said, it's a shotgun approach, right? Your whole idea is you're a corporation, right? You're a Fortune 500 company. And what you're looking for is the CEO of your company. Now, is that CEO of your company going to knock on the door miraculously one day and hand you a resume and say, I'm perfect for the job? No. You have to go through resumes, right? You have to go through and go through all these interview processes and figure out what best person is a best reflection of you. How important is your online personal marketing, your ability to date online, and your ability to go out important as far as attracting a high quality partner?
Yeah, it is very important. I mean, I feel like I get why people get so frustrated with online dating because I've been there, done that. But I made sure that I was following the trend. So again, I go back to sales, right? Follow the new trend there's always going to be different technologies, different trends. You have to be able to adapt to it. And it doesn't matter if it doesn't work, at least you tried. But I get why people get frustrated with online dating because I feel like it's the same people over and over and different platforms. But that's just how it is, and you have to be able to be open to that because you just never know what's going to happen. Because it could be another frustrated person that decided to put up an account the day before and then match with you. So you just never know. So always be open to all this opportunities and all the new kind of changes. But again, don't spend too long on the online dating platform. Make sure you're not laying in bed for hours and hours and just swiping. Make sure you're putting yourself out there also and going out and using every avenue available in order to meet people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. It's a very good point. Um, in your mind, what are the most important attributes for a man to possess in order to attract a high quality woman? And the reason I ask that question is because I have a lot of guys that I know, whether past friends or current friends or clients, etc. And everyone wants the supermodel, right? Everyone wants the girl who's the 10, who's beautiful and successful and cooks and cleans and does all this stuff, which to me is a total enigma because it's very hard to find other than yourself, obviously. But how would you go about searching for that type of person? And what would you do if you were a guy in order to attract that type of person?
I mean, be that type of person, right? We always
Mm,
go back to be the person you want to attract. So if you want to attract someone successful, someone that can cook, learn how to cook. If
mm-hmm,
you can't
mm-hmm,
expect the other person to fill the void that you want if you can't do it for yourself. And I think the
mm.
biggest thing I've learned going through the breakup and everything is I was trying to look for someone that's going to fill that void. And that never works out because that always ends up in a heartbreak versus giving that to yourself and making sure you're a whole person and you're okay being single. And I think for me, my biggest realization was like, I'm okay being single for life, as long as I'm happy because I know that I can be happy alone. And then the moment you have that kind of revelation or acceptance, that's when you're reserving space or you're opening up space for meeting someone special in your life.
I think that's an important thing. And you can't just say it, you truly have to believe it. That internal belief of everything I want in my life, I must create for myself. And the person that I add to my life, which is most beneficial to me, will be a person that'll continually add to the benefit and mutual benefit of one another. Because when it's not a value add, the relationship simply doesn't work, right? It's a puzzle piece, putting two pieces together and making sure that you're constantly adding value to one another. And I think that's the biggest struggle, because I think the common misconception is all attractive women want are super wealthy men to take care of them. And all guys want is to have sex with super attractive women. In your thought process, how accurate is that, cliche, and how do you get out of that cliche and be someone different in your market?
It's so accurate. I mean, everybody wants the best, right? But unfortunately, we can't all have it, you know. I think I've learned, I think my therapist actually told me that your partner can only give you 80% of what you really want. So there's going to be that 20% void. That's why infidelity happens, because,
Mm.
you're always looking for that 20% void that they're not giving you. So you have to be able to provide that, and you have to be able to be okay with that and be able to give that to yourself. Otherwise, you're never going to be happy, because you're always going to be looking for that next best thing. So there's got to be a point to where, okay, he's giving me, or he or she is giving me 80% of what I want, but it's still missing the 20%. How do I get that? Well, give it to yourself.
Hmm. Hmm. I think that's important. I think a lot of people, we've had this conversation before, but I think a lot of people, cheat and or break up and or relationships fail because they find someone else that has that missing 20, and then they go for that 20, and they're like, oh my God, I went from 80 down to 20. Now I have an even worse deal. So you're trading one set of problems for another. Now, here's another question I think that's important too. The older I've become, and obviously you just turned 40, everyone knows that, and you look fantastic for your age, by the way. But here's the question. How important is disposition to a relationship?
It's so important, because a lot of times we use things like nice dinners, trips as a distraction to really figure out what really is going on. And I've done that myself, so I'm guilty myself. I did it in my past relationships, but it is important that you're able to just hang out without any form of distraction and just chill. And that I learned is so important, because a lot of times we're, especially like type A personalities, we're always on the go, like trying to chase the next best thing. But we forget what's really important in life, and that is, being with someone just to, it has nothing to do with any luxury, being with someone, being able to just talk to them and hang out with them and do nothing. And, I think that's so important.
Yeah, no, I think it takes a mature person to understand that construct too, because of the relationships I've been in, and I'm sure you could attest to this, and maybe some of the viewers watching it later on, is we always think there's like the next best thing out there, right? And then we realize many of the times we're trading one set of problems for another, right? We're trading, oh, this person is an alcoholic, this person's a drug addict, this person has bad financial acumen, this person doesn't have a career, whatever it is, right? There's always some void, in some construct of their life. But I think you hit the nail on the head. When you create the person that you want to become, it's when you certainly start to attract people that think the same way as you, right? You're not trying. This is one of my favorite quotes, and I'm sure the listeners listening in could attest to this. You're not trying to sell 10 people on one home. You're only trying to sell one, and that's the same thing on a relationship, right? Let's say you have a big surgeon that you're trying to close, or you have a 10 or $20 million house that you're trying to close. It only takes one person to fill that void, to fulfill that transaction, right? To fulfill that construct of I made the sale, so to speak, right? But I think a lot of people think, oh no, I need to do this over and over and over again. And the next person has qualities that the other person doesn't possess. So let me just be a Peter Pan and jump around and make sure that this person has more than the other. Did you ever have a point in your life where you learned like the next guy is not necessarily the best? And then how did you have the maturity in your life to understand you were bringing your own happiness, not someone else bringing it to you?
Right. I mean, again, it goes back to making sure you're happy to be alone or to be single before you even enter into any kind of relationship. Otherwise, you're just never
Mm.
gonna be happy, and you're always gonna look for the next best thing. And for me, like, when I was initially dating, I knew I wasn't really ready to find D1 or someone that I, would be in the next relationship with. So I was honest with that. So what to whoever I was dating, I was honest that I wasn't, ready emotionally to jump into a new relationship. But I do want to kind of get to know the other person, see how we can help each other, whatever it may be, whether it's connecting, whether it's business, whatever it may be. So I think it's important to first be happy being single, and making sure that you are providing yourself with the happiness that you require the other person to give you.
Hmm.
And doing all these activities. I mean, like, for me, I've always wanted to dance. Growing up, I've always wanted to learn how to ballroom dance. And so now that, when I became single, the first thing I did was, and that's how we met, the first thing I did was, take dance lessons. So doing all these things that will benefit you or make you a better person. And it's interesting how when you started not actually obsessing over meeting someone, that's when you start meeting someone. But
Mm.
again, you still have to put yourself out there. You still have to try. I'm not saying this so people can stop making an effort into going out and really going to places that to where they can potentially meet someone. You still have to do all that stuff, but your priority has to be, how do I make myself happy alone?
Hmm. Hmm. 100%. I think the most attractive person is the person that's chasing not only their dreams and their pleasures, but also their calling. And for some reason, those are magnetically the most sexually appealing people out there, regardless of their physical appearance, because they themselves are fulfilling the highest version of themselves, right? How important is it when it comes to self talk when you're on a date or let's say you're married? How important is it to really be positive and bring like a positive interaction into the relationship at all times?
It's very important. And for me, it goes back to, like, have some respect towards the other person. So I've had dates to where it just wasn't going the right way. It wasn't working at all. But the other person did, show up and did, you know, take take time out just to meet me. So I make sure that I show respect back by really staying positive and trying to enjoy their company and try to connect with them on whatever way. But then again, after the fact, be honest about what your intentions are, or if you want to move it forward or not. Because the last thing you need or you want is to lead anybody on. And I think for me, that was very important when I was initially dating. I was making sure that I was being very open and honest with them as far as if there's an attraction or connection or not.
And you're doing that rather quickly, I would assume, too. You wouldn't let it linger for too long, correct?
That's correct. And
Hmm.
if they try to make it linger, you just stop communicating.
Mm. The guy to ghost came out, you ghosted him.
That's right.
Well, I'm sure it's different as a girl than it is to a guy, right? Because as a girl, I would assume it's very complicated because as a guy, you have to go out and attain what it is that you want, right? You want to make money, you got to procure a lead, right? You want a beautiful woman, you have to ask a beautiful woman out, right? As a beautiful woman, how is it different and what are the struggles that you guys go through as far as sifting through all of these people wanting your attention? How do you do that well? And how do you do that to where you maintain your dignity and you maintain your femininity?
Right. First of all, you have to trust your instincts. I mean, for me, like, because of, my experiences, and I'm sure a lot of people have their own relationship experiences when it comes to relationship, knowing what you want and knowing what you don't want, and be easy to eliminate. I think there's no reason to
Hmm.
drag on. No, because the other person shows you who they really are by what they talk about. But and again, like you have to be able to ask the right questions. So during a date, you have to be able to know those questions. That way, you can eliminate pretty quickly, but respectfully, of course. So as a female, for me initially, when I was getting asked, like people were asking me for dates, I won't even go out with them if I knew it wasn't going to work out, nor try to drag it on. I would respectfully just say no.
Decline. So
Yeah.
if a guy, let's say, wanted to attract a quality person like you, what are some attributes that maybe they should implement in their life that someone like yourself would find attractive, and therefore they'd have a higher conversion ratio on making sure they can find a higher quality partner?
Right. I mean, I think for me, it's important to really focus on your health and your fitness. I feel like
Hmm.
a lot of successful, female or male, one of the things that they do, is to work out consistently. I mean, you are doing that yourself. So I think like investing on yourself, it could be a hobby, it could be a sport, whatever it may be, to where you can attract a different person, the person that you want. For me personally, I've always been very, fitness has always been a part of my life. So I want to attract someone that likes to work out, that likes to take care of themselves, that really understands the value of that. And I'm sure a lot of other successful, again, male and female, do value that as well.
What about career? Because I know for women and men, listening in, if anybody's read my book, one of the first questions anyone is going to ask you, I don't know if you remember, honey, do you remember what the first question someone's going to ask you when they first meet you?
For me, it's different. Where are you from? I'm just kidding. But that's more of a pickup line.
It's what do you
What
do,
is it?
right? That's the first
What
question. What do you
is
do?
right?
And so, what do you do really becomes it's not a literal question. A lot of people say, "Oh, what do you do?" I'm a realtor, I'm a medical assistant, whatever it is, right? It has nothing to do with what they do. They're trying to like put you in a hierarchy of how attractive are you in everyday world. And I think a lot of guys, especially, um, feel that maybe they themselves aren't as successful as they should be or they can be. How is it that a guy, let's say, or a gal can make the proper narrative to make sure that even if they're not as financially, as successful as they want to be, can still attract a high quality partner? What type of story or what type of narrative should they be portraying to their partner?
I mean, for me, honestly, I wasn't really focused on attracting someone super successful. That wasn't my intention. For me, I was looking for someone that has the same drive and passion that I have.
Mm-hmm.
And so they don't have to be wealthy, they don't have to, you know, have a house or drive a nice car, but I want them to be, have a goal to do so in the future. And again, like I'm in a different age bracket too. So by at this age, you would hope, not unless they've been through divorce and all that changes everything, but you would hope that they kind of figure out their life together, or they're it's the most unattractive trait to me personally is someone in their 40s that is still trying to figure their lives out together,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and for me, going through divorce and all that, I still know that I still have a goal, I still have a path that I'm trying to achieve, and that never stopped. So for me,
Mm.
that's very important. Even though you're not where you want to be at, you can still attract someone even more successful than you are if you have the same drive and passion like the other person does.
Now, do you have a mentor or mentors in your life? And if so, what have they taught you that have like attributed to your success?
Right. Well, my mom is obviously my biggest mentor and support, and she's always. I remember going through after my my divorce, she told me that, I was given a second chance in life, basically, to actually do what it is that I've always wanted to do. And she was right, because ever since that happened, I was able to figure out. And I remember having this conversation with you that after my past relationship, I didn't even know what I like to eat. I didn't even know
Mm,
where I want to go. I didn't even know if I like sports. So I was very focused on making the other person happy and doing what the other person wanted, that I forget who I was as a person.
hmm
So, what I learned after that is, and what my mom taught me, is to always know who you are as a person. Don't forget who you are, and don't get lost in that, in any relationship. So that's one thing that I've implemented, that she had taught me. Another thing that I've learned from my brother, actually, and it's, you always want to show people how you want to be treated. And he would always
mm,
tell me this, because you don't let someone physically abuse you and choose to be with them, right?
hmm
Because you
hmm
would never do that to another person. So the way to do that is to show them how you want to be treated. If you treat me kindly, then I will be with you, but if you treat me poorly, then I will move on to my life.
hmm That's a good point. I like that one. I like that one. Now, are there any quotes or anything that resonated with you, or something that stood out in your life that best talks, and connects to what we talked about today? Is there anything that stands out in your mind?
Right. I think this is my speech on my birthday, actually. I don't know if you remember when I talk about choices, right? I think, like, having, or when you get to a certain age, you think about all the choices that you made, all the decisions that you made in the past. And I like the quote, that goes, "Life is about choices. If you don't like your life, make better choices."
hmm yeah, no, I mean that's very true, and I think the most important choice that you can make is who is your significant other, and who are you choosing to spend your personal life with. Because I know for a fact, if your personal life is in shambles, every other part of your life is going to be in disarray, right? You have to come home to a person and or an individual that gives you love, that's reciprocated, that you love, that love you, and be someone that you really want to attract. Like you said, I think that's an important line. Where can they best contact you, follow you, get to know you better? What's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Right. I have, obviously, my Instagram under Gyda Loveres, as well as my LinkedIn under Gyda Loveres. So I think that's the best way to contact me and get in touch with me.
Awesome. And is there anything else you want to share with the audience that you learned as far as professionalism or creating their own brand?
Just be real. Just be true. Be truthful. Have good intentions. Always be kind, and respect other people's time.
Hmm, that's a good one. And how do you think one, I mean, here's the last question. How do you think one becomes more attractive? Because that's really what we're trying to do, right? Is attract more good, solid, successful people into our life. How does one become more attractive, guy or girl?
Well, actually, for me, I think what really is very attractive is someone who's kind and generous. And when I say generous, I'm talking about giving without expecting something in return, because I am that way as a person. Just, yeah, just again, it goes back to kindness. I mean, it's amazing how many people out there are just not a good person.
hmm
So it's, yeah, so kindness is a big thing.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for your time, honey. Thanks for coming on. And for those of you that want to hear AJ's story, again, 4 p.m. Mountain Standard Time in 3 hours, we're going to go live and collaborate on Instagram at Michael Banovac. So again, follow Gyda Levedes on Instagram and LinkedIn. And thank you, sweetheart, for taking the time. Really appreciate the call.
No worries. Bye, guys.
Take care. Bye.